Yeah, I'm over here
Do
doing
that.
I'm doing git commits right now.
You're already okay. Mace is already a mess today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Episode 13 of No One Asked Us. And our guest this week is Karthik Kumar, an accomplished fintech and mortgage tech leader currently serving as EVP and Chief Operating Officer at Lendarch, where he where he spearheads digital mortgage solutions, oversees strategic operations across the organization. Additionally, he contributes his expertise as an advisory board member at Funding Shield, offering valuable guidance rooted in his deep industry experience. Additionally, into all of that, he is a Stanford lead alum, chartered accountant, and a seasoned operator fluent in balancing strategic vision with execution. Karthik, welcome to the show. That bio was done by ChatGPT. How did it do?
Yeah, I was going to say that, it's done a fairly reasonable job. I've never tried to chat GPT myself, but that's interesting. So, hey everyone, Karthik Kumar, and thanks Andrew, PK, and Mace for having me here. I know no
Yeah,
one asked
excited.
this, but yeah, someone asked me to be on this call, so I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you, Karthik. So, right out of the gate, first thing we always start with is, we joke that nobody as a child growing up is like, I really want to get into mortgage tech. So, what we'd love to know is, how did that journey kind of start for you, right? How did you land in the business of mortgage tech?
Sure, and this is a 1 hour call, right? Because I need a couple of days to narrate that sob story. And these are the transcripts of my autobiography. But hey, I would say this was like what more than 2 decades ago. Citi had its own captives, Citibank, Citi Mortgage, and Citi Home Equity, and I joined them from Standard Chartered Bank, which, if anyone knows, is one of the largest
Mhm.
Asian and European banks. So I had left Standard Chartered and joined Citi to run their mortgage operation. So when I joined, I didn't know. I could have been a guy who's handling the credit card division of Citi, could have been capital markets, could have been fund transfer, could have been trade. And one funny question in the interview, it was a very tough one. In the last question, when someone was looking at my profile and say, "Hey, are you open to working in nights?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And they said, "Okay." I said, "Yeah, I used to study in nights when I was doing my chartered accountancy." I didn't realize that was a serious question, and because they wanted me to mirror US hours, and I did 5 hours working in nights, just working in US mortgages. I loved it, A, because it was financially rewarding on top of the list, right? Because when you work
Of
nights, you get,
course.
and then I started learning, loving mortgages at a very large scale of team. And approximately, I would say in 2009, after the GFC happened, um, the fun story aside, we heard news about Citi selling lots of its subsidiaries and divisions
Hmm.
and there. And then we were a bunch of people having a weekend party, and we said, I think they're going to sell this European segment, and they would sell the private banking. They would sell this, and all these smart guys, the Ivy equivalent, sitting sipping their drinks, and then Monday morning we get called in saying that guys, we are up for sale. So that's what happened, and we eventually got acquired by TCS.
Okay.
TCS, Tata Consultancy Services, one of the largest IT and BPO services provider. They are pretty large, significant. It's the same group that owns Jaguar Land Rover. It's a mega billion-dollar group. Till 3 years ago, I worked with them. My last role was the global head, which gave me opportunities to probably travel to hundreds of countries, do multiple keynote speaker roles in Prague and Sydney in India and whatnot. So being doing that, got a very very beautiful perspective of global mortgages, just to see 60-70% of similarities and 30% being unanimous problems. We can go ahead and say, oh, mortgages out here in US is like this, the investor guidelines are like this, compliance are this. It's no different
Mm.
out. Everyone has some unique problems. I don't know, the eternal curse of paper is there in every industry. There are just barely one or two countries that just go paperless. But very, very interesting journey. And then 3 years ago, I joined Lendarch, and everyone probably listening to this call or this thing over a recording knows Tammy Richards. Tammy's a legend. I had dinner with her, and she said, "Hey, listen, I'm creating a huge disruptive technology." And we were at a hotel, just at a restaurant, talking about the map. And then I borrowed her pen and I made some scribbles on it. And then when we walked out, she said, "Hey, I'll be calling you soon, but you're going to remember this dinner for life." I'm like, "Well, it wasn't that tasty, but yeah." Okay. was like- it was a good dinner, but it's not something I would remember for life. But little did I know, 2 months later, she sends me a text and says, "I'm ready for you if you are." And I'm like, "What?" No interviews, no screening, nothing. And then, yeah, we had some serious chats. I jumped into Lendarch. So this is the sadder story, but there are fun parts about why I landed in mortgages. But yeah, 2 decades. As such, I have all 50 state licenses, NMLS. I'm a certified residential underwriter from MBA, and many things in this industry that I'm proud of, and some I'm not. But yeah,
I did notice that on your profile. I thought that was impressive that you decided to go the route of, getting the MBA certification, to really understand like being in the trenches when it comes from the underwriting side. I don't think a lot of people, take those steps typically.
Yeah, and I took it pretty late, Andrew. To be honest, I been in the industry, and when I was in City, because I was running a team of post-close experts and underwriters, City had this beautiful policy where even if you're a leader, you need to be a subject matter expert. So I
Hmm.
had to go through the certification process. So it wasn't that I was unaware of underwriting and knew 5 Cs, but I never had a formal stamp on it. And
Hmm.
I think many things that we've done are encouraged by COVID and the time vacuum that got created because of COVID.
Right.
I just thought, hey, listen, I have too much of time in my hands. So I went ahead, registered 3 levels. And yeah, I cleared that. So
There you
that's,
go. I
yeah,
love it. So, do we want to talk a little bit more just about some of the things that Lendarch does? For those of you who don't know Tammy Richards, she is also president of retail at Kind Lending, and was at Loan Depot for a long time. And yeah, as Karthik noted, is a absolute legend. And actually, this will be the first time we mention this. Tammy Richards and I will actually be on stage together at the Housing Wire AI summit coming up here next month. For those of you who will be at that, so pretty
that
excited about.
is terribly interesting. And here is why, Andrew. She's supposed to be my boss. I don't even know that she's traveling to Dallas. Look at that.
Well, wait! Don't say anything to her because it literally just happened.
Hey, we just
Uh,
went live and the whole world knows about it now.
Will you be at the AI summit?
I think I will be there.
Okay.
Now I have a reason to be there,
No, you have to be there.
Yeah, I'll be
Absolutely.
there.
100%. So
Yeah,
do we want to talk a little bit about just what Lend Arch is doing or has been solving for?
of course. So it's been in existence for 3.5, 4 years. There is a core vision, purpose of the company that I'll come to. It's basically we're creating a technology that is very, very disruptive. It's going to harness the best of every available technology, blended with genuine wisdom that comes from managing mortgage operations. No throwing in words like Gen AI and agentic and AI. And not even loosely throwing the word automation, AI, ML, nothing. No, it's a mind blowing technology. We're going to launch it in a couple of months, and that is bound to disrupt. Now, of course, I just don't want to make tall statements. So this is the Tesla of the auto industry, or this is Meta of social media. No, but we are definitely going to make an impact from the early test results. It's a technology, the way people are originating mortgage loans is going to radically and drastically change and for the good. So we're
There
going to
you
go
go.
from a slot speed to a road runner. I can just tell you in cartoon examples.
All right, there you go. Everybody's gonna be on the edge of their seats for a few months here, but I'm very interested to see what you and Trey and Tammy,
Yeah.
and the rest of you have come up with over there. So for everybody else, if you guys have any questions, always feel free to drop them into the chat. Anybody who's watching live. But we kind of talked before the show. I think one of the areas we'd love to sort of explore and talk about. I know Mace, this is something near and dear to your heart. I'm not sure about PK, but loan origination systems. I think right now we're at a really interesting moment in time. The industry has been dominated, obviously by ICE and Encompass, for quite frankly decades, and while it is always the joke that the last thing you want, if you're a real masochist, you go out and get into the LOS space. But that being said, we are seeing a lot of, I think, new introductions and people looking at the space and how you originate a loan a little bit differently. So yeah, I'm going to kind of put that out onto the table, for what you guys kind of think and what you're seeing. Anyone can jump in.
Yeah, I could probably start off. I'm pretty close to the entire point about LOSs. And of course, the other part of Lendarch, we are consulting with a lot of lenders, service providers, vendors, try to help them with operations, compliance, tech stack issues. We are a consulting firm that has a lot of advisory clients. But broadly, if I were to talk about LOSs, right? It's nearly, I would say, 2.5 to 3 billion annual market technology spend. There are 5,000 odd lenders, fragmented brokers and retail, and of course, smaller IMBs to small credit unions to the large big ones. Uh, LOSs, I would, broadly speaking, right? People have been complaining a lot about LOSs off late. Oh, my problem's happening because of this, because of that. But let's just see that when LOSs came in late 90s or early 90s, the way mortgage operations was done without a system was paper based, which goes in the same flow. So someone takes a 1003, paper based 1003. So you had pieces of paper, like 10 pages of paper. Then you move it to a processor, which is, you go from the first floor to the fourth floor now. The processor is going to do verifications, order, and they're going to add 30, 40 pages, make a file ready. Now you go to the seventh or 10th floor in the building, which is now your physical file moved up to the underwriter's desk. It stays there for a few days, gets done. The underwriter puts all their observations, and you have now closing conditions, and now it moves to the 16th or 17th floor, which is the closing department. LOSs came to probably streamline and make it easy and get all of them to ground floor, right? Avoid paper, make more sensible workflow. But what was a miracle at that point of time? That they actually digitized that workflow from a processor to an underwriter to a closer. Today happens to be the same workflow. Every technology has. The investors don't ask for a processor role or an underwriter's role or a closer's role. They're giving you guidelines. You have created a workflow now to add 60, 70 tasks at each role that might not be required. There are multiple points of dual checks that are happening more than twice. We can talk days about OCR. We need a separate podcast about OCR, but just saying, today's LOS is actually a mirror of the paper-based workflow that was there 30 years ago.
Right.
No one's challenged the conventional. And I don't know if it's good, if it's bad, but this is the state of affairs. Now, tech stack, I wouldn't say antiquated. We have some new players, the good technologies out there. But yeah, tech stack is old. The way, I was reading a Stanford blog or, someone's podcast. They made this statement, and I felt embarrassed as a person from the mortgage industry. They say, listen, I need a student loan. I can get it online in 50, 20 minutes. I need a credit card. I get it in less than a minute. I need an auto loan. I walk into the dealers. I walk out with the car that I chose in 25, 30 minutes. And then they say, me and my spouse, very, very big challenge was for both of us to agree on a house. The biggest challenge in our lifetimes, both of us liked a property. We overcame that. The next challenge was putting money for down payment. And now I have everything ready. You're telling me I have to wait for 30, 45, 20 days? For what?
Hmm.
And you're going to send me paper that in compliance, regulatory. Now, of course, the regulations are looking out for borrowers, but what are these 300, 400 pages? Right? What are these 300 pages that I clicked online on DocuSign, and then I have to go to the settlement agent and then re-sign 100 more times, and I get called in most of the times because I missed a signature.
But how much do you think would you put on the lender here, Karthik? Because I remember day one certainty came out, and I was consulting, and it
Yeah.
blew my mind that it was like 2 plus 3 years before they started getting mass adoption. Like, I mean, lenders are, I mean, there's some lenders. My previous mortgage company average closing is 11 days, and we tell people that, and they're like, "No way." And like, yeah, our underwriters are doing 8 files a day. They're like, oh, that must be easy conventional files. I'm like, no, it's USDA. So how much do you put on the lender responsibility there too, though?
And I would, Mace, I would say this: the lender psyche changes from the scale and size of lenders we're dealing with. Um, you know, Rocket Mortgage 20 years ago would have been first to dive at it because their mindset was to adopt and experiment every technology. Good thing about them, right? I could go to a large bank and say that I want to roll out this initiative. I would spend, as a service provider, as a vendor, as a product provider, anyone going to one of the larger banks would spend 2 to 3 months to get the NDA signed, another 2 to 3 months to get an MSA, SOW, couple of presentations. Then you have a project team managing 6 months of project management. There is a technology cadence, there is an operations cadence. They want to test files. They are large, they have larger fiduciary responsibilities, and I absolutely appreciate that. But you were right, it's absolutely up to the lender. If you have a top down culture that I love this, it's safe, it's approved by the GSEs, I need this to be rolled out in 2 to 3 weeks. It is practically possible. But if you created an ecosystem within your organization that 1 year seems to be the new norm, of course, 50, 60% of the industry has adopted it. And like you rightly pointed out, someone's catching up to it, 1.5, 2 years later. It all depends on the mindset of the lender. You were right, its success and its adoption speed depends on the type of lender.
And I've also seen, you mentioned word like, if I hear someone mention the word task-based workflow again, I might lose my mind. Like, it's exception-based workflow, right? If
Yeah, yeah.
no, like, don't do checking it. Like, don't tell me to go check MI. I want to know if my MI is incorrect. If it's not, go forward. And we're so used to, like, I'm glad you talked about underwriting. One of the most the most glorified checklists in the world is when the underwriter hits add condition group, and they backspace out and they type in max cash to close, and they backspace out and they type
Yeah.
this, instead of having these be data points in the file. And when it goes to closing, a closer goes, oh, I don't have any problems, draw docs. Instead, they go check the max cash to close, and they go check, the earliest closing date. And I think that, like you just said something earlier, that these tasks and all these extra checks are just unnecessary. We need to be operating in exception-based workflows.
Yep. Totally.
Well, I think Mace, we've talked about this before, but I think like when people add tech, it's like what used to be done by a human now has to get essentially done by a system or a piece of software. But then lenders typically just layer on tech and human, so their cost ends up going up rather than like removing the human from that process and saying, okay, now you're going to do something else.
Right. Yeah, shifting those roles around.
Mm.
And each time a human types in something, and going back to backward calculation from repurchase to errors to investors pushing back, each time any human types in something, a skilled professional person is still going to expose everything, uh, 1% bare minimum, the risk of an error for a human typing in. And like what you said, Mace, if someone is going backspace, typing conditions, you've already asked something. The possibility of you asking for a cash to close and messing one digit could wreck the whole thing. If a system was to give you a drop down, allow you to use that drop down and auto prompt that, this is the world of AI, make it intelligent. And that onus is on the system providers, the loan origination system providers. Tries to just try to enhance and make it more user friendly. If there's an Amazon like buying experience, that's a threshold. Try to get as close to that. Don't have 50 screens that a person is struggling to see what to put where.
Well, and have you seen Karthik? I mean, I looked at, forgive me, I looked at what you guys do just before this call. Whenever I was consulting, I found that when it comes to LOS changes and big, revolution, changing, I consulted for Academy Mortgage. They had the best LOS rollout ever award, all these things, and I was a big part of that. And it was to win the award, but also behind the scenes, seeing how much of a shit show it was pretty fascinating. It's funny. I feel like I see some people kind of shut down, like, hey, let me talk to your compliance officer and like, what are the documents that you think should be going out on initial disclosures for FHA? And they're like, I don't know. That was configured about 10, but you have to fight and wait for 2 months for them to finally say, I don't know. But I feel like there's a lot of processes and procedures that are just ingrained. And like the reason why they do that, when you do a new LOS, you are pulling off a lot of Band-Aids and exposing a lot of, well, Andrew did this over here 10 years ago.
Yeah. And
Well, but isn't that one? Okay, so this is going to be a really unpopular statement, more than likely, and coming from the guy who's never worked in an origination shop. The thing that always blew me away when I first kind of got into this portion of the industry was when somebody was like, "Oh, well, there's 567 versions of Encompass." I'm just randomly making that number up, but I was like, wait, what do you mean? And they were like, oh, well, every version of an LOS is customized to that particular lender because that lender's process is, the bee's knees, right, to them, right? So it's like, how much of this also kind of needs to go back on the lenders from just a process standpoint? Dana Giorgio had a great post today kind of talking about this on LinkedIn. But I think oftentimes we want to look at the tech providers and be like, oh, well, the tech providers are the issue or the problem or whatnot. But to a large portion, it's like at one point in time, and I think Karthik, you were kind of touching on this in the beginning, is when do we just step back and be like, dude, the way we're doing this is just not quite working. To your point, I got upset, Karthik. I was laughing when we were talking about the car thing because my last car that I leased, it took like a little bit over an hour, and like I was annoyed that it took an hour. But to your point, like my house, this took like 45 days, right, to like close on this house, and it just doesn't make sense at all.
yeah.
Well, I think the mortgage people, we've said this before. If I got $1 every time one of them told me we do things differently, I could retire. But then I've also been in the same room at the consulting capacity, and I've heard CEOs of lenders that are doing thousands of loans a month just say, why can't it just work out of the box? I'm like, okay, here it is out of the box. Well, we do things differently, and then the cycle begins.
So the question becomes, and we've talked about this, the thing that I find so interesting about the last couple of years, particularly maybe like the last year and a half, with Gen AI becoming a household name. I joke, Karthik, that my wife is my barometer for the general public, because she's like the most non-tech individual. So when she starts coming home telling me all of the ways that she's using GPT, I'm like, okay, everybody's using it now. But it created this atmosphere, at least I feel like, where everyone is sort of participating in the technology conversation, right? So are any of you guys hearing differently from lenders now, where maybe they're more open to process change than they were, say, a couple of years back?
I would just say, let's say there was an EY study, Andrew, talking about AI. Um, I think 2 years ago, and it's not a date, recent report, but 2 years ago, 65% of mortgage lenders had some AI ML thing. This was way before cheap GPT came in, and I would bet that if you ask 95% of the industry what GPT stands for, no one knows it. But anyways, we're talking about days where AI was new, and 65% of the industry had something or the other, a vendor product, vendor service that they were doing it. But only 7%, right, have till date deployed it in production environments. And this is the 7% that can actually harness Gen AI, because they already have created a tech stack that can adapt into an AI environment. So 7% of the industry isn't too bad, given that some person of the industry is still printing paper. And if a borrower gives you printed income documentation, you can't avoid that. But if you're a lender and you're still printing paper and writing notes on it, and on the other spectrum, we're talking about Gen AI, we're talking about a vast split between the industry choices of technology. But the fact is, 7% is a good number. It's a good growing trend. If I would bet my money on anything, it won't be on electrical vehicles, Andrew. But if I was to bet money on anything in this industry, I would say that anyone with intelligent AI use case, you are a service provider, you are a product provider, or you are an LOS provider, this is the best time you could be in. Try, deploy AI experiments. And we're talking about LOS change or adopting a new technology. There's no better time than today. And this is not one of those wisdom that you would find in a old ancient book. Why today? Because volumes are at an all-time low. You cannot repair a flight when it's in air. You have to land it to repair it. If this isn't the time, because tomorrow, let's say the interest rates drop, and you have rate locks, and pipelines go up, everyone will forget every initiative, because there's dollar lying on the table. You want to use everything that works, even if it's 10 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old. Throw money, throw people, throw resources, throw everything. When you're making money, you would forget on any innovation, any transformation. That's how corporate America works. And there's nothing wrong in that. But this is the right time. Things are slow. If you actually want to intelligently try, not even deploy, this is the time. Just go ahead, try, do an experiment.
It's funny because I feel like the industry, I mean, I've been around the industry long enough that I feel like it's always like too busy or too broke seems to be the way the industry like approaches technology. So, I mean, to your point, in 2020, nobody was going to take your phone call or want to talk to you about anything, because they had so many borrowers calling, right? They were just, absolutely slammed. And now people have this downtime, and they're like, oh, we just don't have the money, right? Or there just still is like a lack of focus, I think, from a lot of people out there looking at it. And there's a lot of opportunities for your ability to test out AI, even on just like a smaller level, with companies who will do free POCs, right? It's not, I think that's one of the other things, is people think that they need to have a ton of money and they need to have the other myth is like their data. I think everybody has this idea was created that like all of the data, all your data in-house needs to be in this perfect format and order, right? And I know we've talked to a lot of people who just they think like, oh, well, our data is a mess, our SharePoint is a mess, so therefore we can't do AI, which is just a crazy misconception to me that we're seeing out there.
How do you think something so powerful just can't muster through your mess of SharePoint? Right?
Because I think a lot of people started this. Like that was in the earlier days, and by earlier days I mean like a year and a half, 2 years ago. That was what people wanted to talk about. Was they you need data for AI. You need data for AI. But I think a lot of people also were like looking at like this like huge retransformation of the entire organization rather than going, okay, how do I handle QC of appraisals, right? How do I handle underwriting questions? How do I handle re-verifications, right? Just whatever the little spots that you can kind of look at from that perspective.
I think, Andrew, the other thing I would say is like I think people are asking more creative questions of like, can this be done? Whereas before it didn't even ask, could it be done? And sometimes it's not even an AI thing. It's just really just integrating two APIs.
Yeah. How much do you guys hear that one too? Like we get requests where people come and I'm like, dude, I could have built that 5 years ago. Like it's fairly basic machine learning. Like there's literally no Gen AI in what you just put on the table. So
I would be very surprised if you find a vendor product or a service and their website without using the words cloud, without using the word AI, and without using the word API. I think these three are the must-have hashtags in every product. People say, "Oh, wow!" And well, if it is, you are genuinely that good, which I'm guessing most of them are, then something's not working. Because at the end of the day, the borrower is actually waiting to hear back from the lenders. They're chasing like a golden ticket. The borrowers are waiting for an average of 20, 30 days. 2 days, 3 days before closing, they might have this one weird document request that you're surprised. Am I actually going to close on Thursday and you're asking me this on Monday? This is a home buying experience. You're already nervous. You're taking the biggest loan of your life. And those 20, 30 days with the lender, many a times could be very stressful. So sadly, everyone claims to have this, but collectively, it's not giving that kind of value or yield that the borrowers deserve, the lenders deserve, and the service providers deserve. Everyone deserves it, but something is broken. You have an entire train, but one compartment is totally missing.
So what would you do?
Put him on the spot there.
Sorry, Mace, what was that?
So what would you do to that process?
Hey, find the missing compartment because it's not the same in each time. You might have incorrect adoption of a great technology. Your LOS works perfectly, but it was implemented incorrectly. Even it was implemented correctly, someone's using the older workflow. They're still using the earlier checklist. Yeah. So, like I told you, it's a train, and something's going missing, and that's not a standard thing because by now we would have all figured it out. Or this is the missing part. Each time there's a new problem. Every loan is unique. Every lender's products and programs are unique. Every lender's customization of their LOS is unique. Their workflow is unique. So their problems are bound to be unique. So there's not like a standard fixed answer. If there was one answer, we say, oh, it was paper, we would have solved it 20 years ago.
Well, and it's also, when you think about it, is there any other transaction that in your life that involves so many frigging people, right? Like, really think about it, right? It's like the LO, the LOA, the processor, the assistant processor, the underwriter, the closer, the appraiser, the re-verifications, it's like the title, like it just goes on and on, like the number of hands that are kind of in the pot. And this is a question I've always had to ask is title is a perfect example, right? Like title makes no sense to me, like at all in 2025, right? But like it's an industry that's just not necessarily going to go away. It's like when I look at the cost to originate a loan, right? Yeah, I mean, people are making money off of these things, right?
Well,
So it's like,
what's wild, Andrew, is you'll find out that even if you do a new construction, you have to get title work. You get a chain of title on your first on a new construction. A lobbyist.
No, I know that because we built this house in 2022. So like, yeah, I know it makes it, but I'm like, this was literally like a plot of farmland, right? Like before, as a matter of fact, there's a cornfield behind me, directly that way. But yeah, so it's when I look at the process and it's like, okay, I understand appraisals, right? That's another area that I don't know how that gets disrupted necessarily, but that's something that takes time, right? From the moment that this loan's gonna, is gonna happen, or it's requested, whatever, to the valuation getting done, right? But it's like, okay, 5-6 days, then why can't we close in 7, right? Yeah. Now, that being said, I still think the appraisal industry seems like it would be ripe for someone to disrupt that from a process perspective as well. But I'm not taking on that challenge. So if anybody else wants to.
And it's just going to go bad from here. Appraisers are going to be one of the most precious resources. If you look at it, more than 60% of appraisers are nearing retirement. And in the last, I would say, year on year, there's a 3% decline of the number of appraisers. People are retiring, leaving. There are no new entrants, right? And the Appraisal Institute, have been calling out, saying that the licensed number of people have gone down nearly 30%. Plus, there is entry. You need 75 credit hours and 1,000 hours of being an intern, licensing exams. Hey, if I need money,
1,000 hours. That's so
1,000
crazy.
hours. Yeah, it's just it's a very long path. It's a rewarding path. If you're patient, you're in college, and you can actually get it now. Because there's going to be demand for newly constructed properties. Appraisals aren't going to go away that easily. That's for sure.
You don't think that
Otherwise, I'm hoping that waivers come in and stuff gets streamlined, but the appraisal industry is facing a much larger challenge. And it is, there could be AI, there could be Gen AI, there could be millions of great things, but the human appraisers are declining, and that's a very scary data.
So you don't think that there's going to be more of a world where we're just having the appraiser is going in and just doing more of a verify minimal measurements, take a video of the place and walk out? I think that's going to be the future. Is some kid's going to show up with your camera and record it and walk through and just leave.
Why can't the seller of the home or the borrower doing the refi, why can't we come up with technology where I can just take my iPhone, walk through the house, right? Do a full video of the house. Maybe there's some sort of a selfie component. GPS.
One of those 360 cameras.
Yeah, but you're not gonna. I mean, somebody's not gonna have that. But I'm just saying, like, why is it that we can't get it into the hands of the buyer or the seller, right? And then leverage.
I think that goes back to stated income loans. They could, they have to have a third party go in and say, yeah, I did this.
Hey, here's what I'm going to recommend. There's an appraisal institute, and I do think that we should nominate Andrew to be on their board to revolutionize the way it's sought.
It just seems insane to me. And this is what so coming from the capital market side, right? Yeah. And the post-close secondary, I always kind of laugh at the fact that, like, so in order to be an appraiser, right? Like you said earlier, I've got to do, 75 hours of coursework. I've got to do a thousand hours of internship, which is mind blowing to me, but whatever. And then it's the same reason we're running out of electricians, by the way, and plumbers, is because it's such a long period of time for the internship that nobody can afford to do the actual internship, unless you're, in college, obviously. But then on the secondary side, you have someone who's never gone through any of that training, who's determining whether or not that appraisal is good enough for that loan to go into a security. Like it just makes so little sense to me, right? Or the fact that like on securitizations, they use broker price opinions, right? So like now I just have a real estate agent that's like taking a picture of the outside of the home, and that's good enough for the rating agencies. But meanwhile, I have to have thousands of hours of experience to value the actual home. I don't see, and even then, to me, it's like it becomes a little bit subjective from the human point of view, right? Like it's not like there's clear cut like calculations. Like this just seems like an AI solve, like all day long from my perspective. And it just becomes a question of how does AI get the data and what is that data? And
Andrew, we might have
what?
I was gonna say we might have some angry appraisers watching the video and leaving
Probably that's good, but
Yeah,
like Karthik said, they're all retiring anyways.
I don't know him at all.
Well,
There's
I see
Karthik's
all
idea.
sorts of hate posts about Andrew on LinkedIn tomorrow.
And no one asked us, but Andrew just pulled us into this call, just for the record.
For the record, this is only Andrew's opinion.
They're gonna take your picture and
but,
like.
No, but do you get my point? Like with an iPhone, how hard is it? And for the AI to then detect whether or not the entire house was shot, right? Like, you could run some sort of a comparison against county records of square footage versus the square footage that was captured in the video. I don't know.
Hey, for exterior appraisals
There
that
you go, Mace.
Mace spoke about, we could use drones. Drones could do the job.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and people have been exploring that technology for years, and I don't know if it has been totally successful. I do know that some of these delivery drones were shot at, so I don't know how successful.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, where I live, they probably would shoot at you. Good old Indiana. Well, wait, but wasn't there a company? Does anybody? There was a company out there that was doing like satellite-based monitoring of homes.
Palantir?
No. Well, maybe. I mean, maybe. I don't know what Palantir's watching us right now, so be careful, PK, with what you say on that one. But there was somebody that was doing something to that effect around that. So, anyways, it's just interesting to me that I haven't seen or heard much disruption in that particular. And when you think of it, it is the longest. And you guys tell me if I'm missing something, but it's really the largest or the longest delay point really in the originations process, isn't it, Mace?
I think it's
one of.
I think it depends on certain areas and rural areas too. We have certain issues. Karthik's probably familiar with this. Like there's some areas of Texas where you're like, I want an appraisal done over here, and appraisers is just like, I'll do it, $1,500. Yeah. And they're like, wait, what? And then they're like, I'm not paying that. And they're like, okay. And then their lender's like, okay. And then this is where a lot of tolerance cures come from, where you can't fix that one, where they're just like, hey, I told the borrower it'd be about $600, and he's, so they are definitely finding their demand. So maybe some of those guys are counting on the other guys to retire. But we actually worked with a company doing a small language model that is doing like AI vision, and like it can like detect if someone falls down at a workstation, or it could count a crowd, or it can do a lot of stuff like that. And so where we are with the ability for even noobs like me to be able to do that, some people that are really good at it should be able to do it for a home.
I would think so. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. I'll be interested to see it because, to your point, that is becoming a problem. And even on the capital markets side, they see that because of any of the additional products that are needed for the securitizations, like the prices just continue to skyrocket because the supply is just not meeting, or the demand is not meeting up with the supply is not meeting up with the demand from that perspective. So we haven't talked really that much about AI. So I'd love to kind of jump into.
You mean Appraisal Institute?
What?
You mean the Appraisal Institute,
The
right?
Appraisal Institute, yes. We're going to start a school. So, Karthik, what are some ways? I'm curious to know, not necessarily on your technology, but what are some ways that you guys are leveraging AI kind of on a day-to-day, within the company itself, or how you are personally?
Broadly, if you're asking for it, first is paper. When people say paper, we are still thinking on a printed A4. Broadly, I'm just giving you an example of a way to revisit technology. If you're using a TIFF, JPEG, or a PDF today, your process at step 0, not even step 1, has failed. It has failed. Every document, let leave alone some of the broker supplied ones, but every third party out there, we have great products from First American, we have great products from Catality, great products from Funding Shield, Candor. Everyone communicates on JSON, XML. They are giving you digital information. Now, if your workflow gets a 1003 and you refer to that PDF, that's 3 or 4 more days. That's 20% more cost for you.
Right.
You do not have a system that absorbs data digitally native. And at that very second it absorbs, points out what's missing, what's incomplete, or what's incorrect, or what's expired. Your technology is redundant.
It's an excellent point. When you look at technological innovations over the history of human beings, right? It's how can we more efficiently communicate or transfer communication from one human to another, right? So if we're talking about cave paintings, language, the printing press, the typewriter, PK's laughing at me.
The cave paintings got me.
Cave paintings got you. And then we shifted, like the last technological revolution, right? Was what? Well, it was websites and Word documents and PDFs, and it was just a faster way for us to communicate, email. But now we're trying to transfer that information to a machine. And you hit the nail on the head, which is what I don't think a lot of people recognize is just having a bunch of PDFs around isn't going to solve your problem ultimately. So there is a much bigger shift of what are the systems of collection and record, if you will, need to shift in order to fully leverage AI in its completeness.
I think the intelligence of your technology lies on how you ingest data. Everything else will fall in a right data sequence, beautiful workflow orchestration. But if you're going to depend on a technology OCR to do 70-80% success, and then a human to sit on top of it to get that accuracy to 98%, that 2% that you're leaving as your element of ambiguity is a straight up cost for repurchase 60 days from today, or 30 days, or 120 days, whatever. Each time you are taking information and trying to type that information in, your workflow itself is paralyzed. You have to change the way you're ingesting data. I think that is the biggest success.
Well, and most studies show that at best the accuracy by a human will be 95%. And that's like at absolute best. More often than not, it's like in the 85 to 90% range, which is just crazy to me that and this is why you said earlier on, right? We've got the checker, it's the layers of QC, because there's so much inaccuracy in the data, which again just piles on to the cost to originate.
For anyone who made it this far into the video, Nugget, Quinn, Qwen, look that up, and then look up Hugging Face, and you can find the best. Like, this is better than Textract, better than Google OCR. Like, these small language models, you can deploy your own today, and you can have something that's better than every other OCR platform you've ever seen, ever.
Can you spell that again, Mace?
Qwen?
Qwen.
All right, that's...
Wait, are you having more success with Qwen on data extraction?
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
2.5 VL, the newest one. You just deploy on Hugging Face and go do a little try. Like Karthik said, go play.
Go play.
It's better than Google and Amazon Textract. It's amazing.
Better than unstructured IO?
I have to do a comparison. You can do that.
It doesn't run that comparison. Unstructured, I think, tends to be the best one that's out there. But anyway, you cut it. I mean, I think the larger point here, right, is, how we're gonna see a transformation in a lot of these systems, and I think it's why so many spaces can be disrupted right now, is just merely on how they're collecting and capturing the data from that perspective. We only have about 8 minutes or so left here, maybe a little bit less. So Karthik, what are some ways I always preferred large language model for personal use? Are you a GPT or a Claude or Google?
Yeah, I have a paid version of GPT. So
all right, so you're GPT.
Total GPT. And then sometimes I use Perplexity, and that's where it stops. If I'm shopping something, and I use Perplexity because I can ask a simple question. Where can I find these sneakers near me? And I use Perplexity for that.
So Andrew, I don't know if you're opening this for everybody, but I thought this was funny. I was trying to have a Google Meet link that was static, right? So I have a static Zoom link, right? It's always the same. And I use Claude Pro 2.5 because I'm on Gemini, I'm on Google platform. And it was like, oh, here's the documentation that says to do this, go to this area in Google Apps. And I'm like, well, it's like, verify your version. So I use the chat support, and then I get an AI chat support. So I'm like, hey, like, you're over here telling me this. And so I finally get a user. And then so I'm telling him, and I'm linking him what Claude is saying. And he's going, I don't know why it's saying that. That's not true. And so then I'm telling Claude, I'm like, hey, he's saying this. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, you're getting an entry-level guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Clearly, he doesn't see this documentation. And so there's a link, and I can tell it's structured like a Google Doc. And I'm like, but I go to the site, and it didn't exist anymore. Like, it got taken down. So I was like, hey, it looks like it's taken down. He goes, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, try this documentation in. And anyway, and so it was funny watching that kind of, and then the guy was like, I was like, I think it's been taken down. And he was like, oh, I think you're right. I don't think we're offering that anymore. But it was an interesting little, when Gemini called the chat support entry level, doesn't know what he's talking about.
What the better person is like, why are they still using humans on the chat level at Google for the support?
I had to escalate it up past the AI guy.
Poor documentation, I guess, is the problem. Circling back to that point. So Mace, you're more of a Claude person, aren't you?
For coding, it seems to be a little better, but then sometimes Gemini has a bigger token capacity, so like context. But even today, I use ChatGPT and Claude. Sometimes I'll ask it the same exact thing and just see what they kind of come back with.
Which one knows the most about Mace?
Oh, ChatGPT
knows the most about you. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say GPT. That's like my therapist. Knows too much.
This is so we actually talked about this. Like, I think a huge unlock. Again, anybody out there who wants to solve this for me, please do. Which is, how do I take everything that GPT knows about me and transfer it to Claude or Gemini? That's the real, like, the real moat when you think about it is like, I won't leave GPT. Like,
The
even if
context.
somebody tomorrow was like, oh, Claude's way better, I'd be like, yeah, but the problem is GPT knows everything about me, right? Like, you know, I had to put out, you know, we do a quarterly, you know, newsletter for the company, right? And GPT knows everything about my company. So it was like, I was like, can you put together a quarterly investor letter, right? And it just, bloop, and it like, no, I mean, I had to edit it, right? But it remembered more than I was going to remember of what occurred over the last quarter. From that perspective. So it is difficult.
Mine's going to be like, PK had like 3 mental breakdowns.
Okay. So our guest next week, Chris, I screwed up. I don't have the Dana question in front of me. And PK, do we have Aaron Landy from Closing?
We should.
What the fuck coming next? Sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not. Sorry, Closing WTF.
It's a family-friendly podcast.
What?
Said it's a family-friendly podcast.
It is a family-friendly podcast. Can you explain for Karthik what Closing WTF is or does?
Yeah, I'll try to do my best. Basically, you're able to like upload your loan estimate in there, and then I think the idea is that they're able to give you just like raw feedback, whether or not you're getting a good deal or whether you're getting screwed over. I think you're able, and then what they do is they compare it against other estimates in the market. And so, I mean, that's what I understand from it so far.
Well, they've got a huge. They must be. It's actually kind of brilliant. I'd love to know how many LEs like a day or a week they process, because if you think about it, like if they're really getting all these consumers to upload LEs, the amount of LE data that they have as an organization is frigging monstrous. But I just don't know what kind of traffic they have. Karthik, is there anything that you'd be interested in knowing from Aaron and what they're doing?
I would definitely want to know how are they generating an LE without having access to borrower address, loan amount.
So Karthik, no, what they're doing is you can actually upload your LE, and then they will kind of look at it and see if there's any BS fees, and also compare other LEs to kind of tell you like, hey, are you getting screwed over?
Oh, that way, like thing, you know, if you had processing line items and processing fees and underwriting fees, that kind of, that's beautiful. I'd love to see it. That's
there you go.
The technology we have. I think they might be a good fit for me to point out and let the borrowers know through the lender that hey, the borrower can see this, so can you.
You know what would be, what the brilliant play by Aaron would be, and we'll talk about this. He could become like the Carfax of the mortgage industry. You know what I mean? Like, how brilliant would that be? Like, oh, show me the car, show me the LE fax or whatever. I don't know what the name of it would be, but there you go.
Good idea.
Karthik, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here today. Dana, I apologize. I forgot your question. I failed. That's what happens when Andrew doesn't work over the weekend. But Karthik, thank you so much. We can't wait for your announcement. Once you guys do the big announcement here in a few months, we'll have to have you back on so that we can talk about the product. I know a little bit, so I don't know a lot.
You know a lot about it, Andrew.
I know enough to tell people like it's definitely going to be worth the wait. Anything that Tammy and Trey and Karthik are working on is going to be spectacular. There's no question about it. So, Thanks everybody. And again, we'll see you next week for episode 14 with Aaron Landy from Closing WTF. All right. See you guys.
Thank you.